Well, first of all, there's a reason why, as someone once said, death is no cure for ignorance or whatever. It's because our state of being, when we withdraw from this reality, carries an energetic frequency signature based on the state of being we have been in up to that point. Thus, you take that with you. You take that frequency, that state of being with you. So it's true that there are choice and consequences. Don't just end with what we call death. Yes, of course, you try to see the good in people. And as I've been saying in my books way back, and I can say this with absolute honesty, I look at the people that are running this world, and I've met many, many people who've interacted with those people and have suffered indescribably, almost unimaginably from those people. But I don't have any hatred for them. Because if I want to expose what they're doing so it can be stopped, but I don't have any hatred for them. Because if I have hatred for them, I become them. And what's the point in that? You can uncover deeply unpleasant things without being frightened of them. You can uncover deeply unpleasant things without being pulled into their frequency. And you can uncover deeply unpleasant people without hatred. Because the only person that suffers from hating someone else is the hater. But there's a difference there's a balance between hating these people, and I see a lot of that, of course, in the alternative media, and also at the other extreme, seeing good in to the point where you don't see what they're doing. And you say, oh, no one will ever do that. No, they'd never do that. They'd never do that. No one would do that. No, you wouldn't do that. They would do that. And we need to face the fact they're doing it, or it's going to go on. It's okay, people saying, oh, you mustn't say this and you mustn't do that, you mustn't do that. What about the people who are suffering? What about the kids who are suffering? What about the people all over the world that are suffering daily because of the actions of this network? What about the people in Libya who were bombed from the sky mercilessly on the pretext of protecting them from violence? Let's forget about them, because I'm just gonna meditate. Well, meditate, get some insight, and then let's see how you're going to express that in the world, so that we don't have people being bombed from the sky. It's again, it's choice and consequence with whether you ignore what's going on or whether you try to make a difference to it. It's choice and consequence. There's always consequences in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. One way that I thought that I've been thinking of, thought it for a long time. Actually, I gave up with it actually, and when I started to channel, it came back to me to tell me that's what I'm here to do. But still, it just seems like such a daunting thing. But what was the only way I could see it for my key skills to make a difference was some sort of spiritual news network. Approaching the news from a completely alternative perspective, a 24/7 spiritual news channel where it's approaching, getting the big people on that you wouldn't normally get on because you're a news network, but approaching it from a totally different stance, the interview with them, yeah. And because they soon hold up their Bible, don't they? But they don't live by it.
Well, it's very important what you're doing and what people like you are doing, because in the end, and we come back to the same thing: choice and consequence. The best choices are made from the best range of information from which to make that choice. And of course, what the mainstream media is doing is, as an expression of the program, it's giving people, it's not even giving people narrow choices, it's telling people what their choices should be. That's even more extreme. And so the antidote to that is alternative information to show that there are other choices that can be made, and there are other perspectives of the same situation.
But a news network, not a network. See, I always thought it would be a network that had other people's shows like this on there. I don't think that's the right perspective to do it from anymore. That's just my truth. I think it's got to come from the news. You know, imagine when the Paris shootings happened, approaching that not just from an alternative approach like Alex Jones would do, but from that spiritual perspective. Imagine that. It'd be so different. And that's the perspective that we don't get. But, you know, yeah, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Alex Jones. I'm just saying that, you know, I just think that there's another perspective in all this as well.
So what perspective would you have put on the Paris events from this news network point of view then, Kev?
From a spiritual perspective, you know, I would have done, well, I don't know exactly, but just imagine that you've got someone there that's some sort of spiritual guru, and not guru, but someone that's, you know, time served in that arena, spirituality, and that looks at it from the sense that, well, there may have been a bigger picture why this has happened, you know, there may have been choices involved here, you know, souls choose to do things. I don't really thought it out completely, but it would be from something that brings people back to who they are. That, I don't know. I haven't got all the answers, have I? But it would be a spiritual perspective. I don't even know what that means really, but it would be from something like that. And people will watch this and think, well, he's not got a fucking clue what he's talking about, really, has he? You know, but you know, that's the intuitive feeling of it, a spiritual perspective. But what the bigger picture of that is, I don't know.
Well, you know, I think, you know, whatever you bring up, whatever we're talking about, it comes back to the same thing: expansion of awareness out of the program. Expansion of awareness out of the program doesn't just give you a greater fix on how the world's manipulated. It gives you a greater fix on you. It gives you a greater fix on reality in general. It gives you a greater fix on the great infinite forever. It gives you a fix on everything. You know, it's not just about waking up to how the world's manipulated. That's only part of it. And so, you know, so much for me, this is just my view, of the alternative media, has not awakened to expansions of consciousness. It has worked it out intellectually, which you can do. If you ignore all the you know, spiritual, for want of a word, I don't like the word myself, I don't know why I don't like it, but I don't. I think it has connotations, that's why. But if you ignore all that side of it and you just focus on the world, you can, if you stay in the 5 sense level of the manipulation, the names, dates, places, connections, secret societies, you can work it out, at least to some extent, intellectually, if you have that perspective. But if you only work it out intellectually, you only stay within that perspective. Thus, your only solution is from within this reality. So it's stockpiling weapons and stockpiling food, and it's fighting the enemy. And that's what much of the alternative media is, I think. It's far from all of it, but much of it. And I'm not knocking that either, because that level is necessary to let people see that there are other ways of explaining world events, even at that level. But if you don't expand your awareness to the point where you go beyond religion, you go beyond buying mainstream science just because it's mainstream science without question, then you don't go into those realms where you can look at this world from a different point of view and realize that getting pulled into hatred of what you perceive to be the enemy is actually going to take the world nowhere, which is why these so-called people's revolutions, often through history, that have been brought about by hatred for what they wish to overthrow, have simply produced something similar under a different name eventually afterwards, or controlled but more covertly. it is a spiritual revolution that we need, not a physical revolution, because the physical revolution will express the spiritual revolution. And by spiritual revolution, I mean a revolution of our sense of identity, so that we come from this perspective of being infinite awareness, having an experience, instead of self-identifying with the experience. And that alone will expand the range of infinite awareness that you're accessing, thus the insight, the intuitive knowing that will come from that. So, when people say to me, what can I do? Well, there are practical things you can do. I mean, people say there's nothing I can do, and there's phone-in radio shows all over the dial every day. I mean, you can. There's nothing you can't do. But in the end, when people say, "What can I do?" the answer is only you know. But so when you access that level of yourself beyond the program, then you can get the insight of your particular contribution. Okay, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do to make a difference in the way that I want to make a difference? And what then happens once you tap into that and you're willing to go with it, then the synchronicity starts to happen, where you end up clearly being taken along a certain path, which is leading in a certain direction for your particular contribution. It's no good saying once you say to people, yeah, but what can I do? Tell me what to do. Because what you're doing is externalizing your power then to me or someone else. So instead of a politician or somebody else, some priest, you're externalizing it to me. What people must do is, again, you mentioned it earlier, work on themselves instead in terms of deprogramming themselves from the download of perception, and then follow where it guides them. Let their intuition be their guide, not what people tell them their life should be and their role should be. Only they know, and only they can make that choice anyway.